Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Midday Western U.S. Regional Forecast video brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. We start first with an animation here from GOES 17. These are infrared cloud top temperatures. And first of all, you notice the dominant ridge that is over the western part of the United States, and that's going to be a major component of our flow for the next several days. The good news is that upstream of that, where we have one trough sitting here and a second one here just north of the Aleutian Islands, plus the really strong flow that we have here coming in the North Pacific, this particular pattern isn't blocked up to where it's going to be permanent. I think that ridge is movable in the western part of the United States, but I'm going to talk to you more about what I mean by that in a few moments. Now, to the south of that ridge, there are two things I would like to be discussing today. One, watch in this area here. We can see that large circulation, which is Hurricane Genevieve. And we need to talk about where Genevieve is going to go in a few moments. But also notice the stream of moisture that's out ahead of it, curling into this area, which has brought in some very high humidity for this time of year in the Pacific Northwest and also into parts of California. Now, as we think about this pattern overall, I'm going to first address what's going on with Genevieve, because the latest model guidance, while the system is forecast to weaken significantly as it moves to the north, as these typically do, we do notice that the main kind of leading edge of this will be working its way close to Southern California again. And just like we saw last week with the moisture from this getting into Southern California, we may be talking about that again with what is left over from Genevieve, because it's certainly within its path to be bringing moisture north to California once more. Speaking of moisture, I want to show you a quick video here sent in by Kevin White. Great video here, Kevin, of some of the downdrafts from some of the storms in Arizona. And the monsoonal circulation, while it's not typical because of where that ridge is, we're still getting these ridge-riding storms that are going around its periphery. Got a great view here, some lightning and some of these bigger downdrafts. Now, I want to show you my view of them. This is going to go up to deep here into space. I'm going to take you about 36,000 kilometers away and show you the same view. These are the storms last night. Watch it again right here. That rolled right across parts of Arizona and New Mexico in the overnight hours. You can see them continue to progress toward the south and west. So when I say this is not typical monsoon, you can clearly see these storms kind of rotating around that ridge that's parked just to the north. We can also detect the fires here from space. See the heat that's in that signature right there. And early this morning as the sun rose, we could see what was left over of those clouds. So how much rain did we get? Well, look at this. This is impressive. And I'll be honest, the models really did not clue in on this being a consequence of this ridge that was parked right in through this area. In other words, the heavier rainfall running around its periphery here. Nor did they early on pick up the moisture that was coming out of the Pacific, which brought in over the last 3 days some very heavy rainfall to parts of California. Ran up over the mountains in the Sierra Nevada, make some big storms as well, as we saw in parts of Oregon. And on the backside of this, as things came around, it just really reinvigorated. And I think we're going to continue to see this into the foreseeable future. But I want to give you a little bit of a background here in these temperatures first, because this ridge has had an interesting consequence bringing all that moisture in. So this was early this morning, low temperatures. We can see in the Columbia Basin, got our lows down into the upper 60s and lower 70s. Same thing for the Snake River Valley, where we had low to mid 70s. But go through parts of Oregon, then get into California. The Sacramento Valley, overnight lows due to that increased humidity. We saw overnight lows barely getting out of the mid 70s, getting farther south into the San Joaquin Valley. Now we're talking about overnight lows approaching 80. And then once we get down into Southern California, now we see our overnight lows back into the desert and then over toward Phoenix, where we didn't even get out of the lower 90s last night. Very, very hot temperatures. And I want to take you to Bakersfield to show you what I mean. Going back to the beginning of July, up until about, a week ago here in August, we saw temperatures really resisting getting stuck in one pattern or another. But then as that ridge became established, you can see how everything went up, both the highs and the lows. And what's also interesting to see here, and it's only a few degrees, but it's important, the diurnal range has shrunk as well as all of that moisture has come in. So let me show you right now. This is early this morning. The reds on here represent high precipitable water and the blues represent low. And this is compared to normal. And as I play this forward, I want to watch two things. You can see that moisture really still funneling in, not only into the Pacific Northwest, but into California. And then watch right there. That's the leftover moisture. I'll show it to you again here. That's what's left over from Genevieve. And you can see that depending on its path, now this is the operational model run, that by Sunday afternoon, we could be watching for increased cloud cover. And if this is at all farther to the west, not over California, but farther to the east, we could be doing better here with our moisture from what's left of Genevieve. So that's why I wanted to show you that circulation at the beginning. All right, but coming back to that upper level ridge, this is how things look today. And just to show you one last piece of this, take a look. This is right here in Colorado, right kind of in the center of the circulation between Colorado and Utah. And as this animation starts over once again, we can see that under that heat, the large fires that are in Colorado yesterday, see them there? And that smoke and haze, really a major problem in the western part of the United States, as we see in this animation. Just as the sun rises, things are a little bit better this morning. Okay, talking about where that smoke is going to go, it's just stuck. It's not getting out of that ridge in the near term. So a lot of times we watch this smoke move across the U.S. Not in this case. It's really tucked away there tightly inside of that upper level ridge, at least through the next 48 hours or so. So that's going to be the way that this is going to shape up here in the near term. So air quality issues, a major concern in the West. And in addition to that, we still have our excessive heat watches, warnings, red flag warnings. We've got everything that comes along with the danger of high heat here represented on our all hazards weather map. To talk about the issues later on today, we'll continue to see the storms kind of fire up along the periphery of that ridge. So we have the scattered dry thunderstorms and isolated dry thunderstorms, plus our elevated fire risks in the regions that kind of surround that. And you can see that by later on this evening, our lightning flash density map is once again showing all around the periphery, right in through here of that ridge. You can see where those thunderstorms are going to continue to fire. So Kevin, you might get another good shot at seeing some more storms again tonight as things go around this ridge. Talking about precipitation, of course the models are not going to be able to accurately represent what's going on here. It's simply because this convection fires up on the mountains, and sometimes that is underneath or inside of the resolution of the model. Plus it's a difficult thing to forecast, but we can still see the scattered nature of the storms around that ridge. What's coming into the northwest, though? Let's take a closer look here at the operational European to see it. So at the beginning, remember I showed you those lows that were kind of loaded up in the North Pacific in the Gulf of Alaska? What we're going to see is the first one to the north here pivot out of the way, so the second one can kind of come in. And you'll see it right there. All right, so let me take you back and show you how that one comes in. So this is this afternoon and this evening, now getting into Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon and evening. And it's going to be on Wednesday evening that we're going to watch for that low to kind of go up toward British Columbia and possibly bring in some cloud cover and precipitation here for parts of Oregon and Washington. Now, meanwhile, if I just go back and play this again, okay, you can see the flashes of green that sometimes happen out here. That is just the model trying to pick up on the convective pattern. See it right there? Those are just those storms that pop on the heat of the day. And as we go forward with this, let's now go past where we are here on Friday, getting into Friday night. Now we're into Saturday afternoon and evening. Things get a bit more stagnant after that, and we can see what's left over of Genevieve right here. Okay, so that takes us out to next Monday. Where does this pattern go from here? Well, stretching this out into week 2, there's a bit of a difference between the GFS, which is on the left, and the European, which is on the right. And it's really going to boil down to what happens right here and right there. You see, in both models, we're attempting to put a bit of a split flow pattern, but it's going to be in the Gulf of Alaska. And as such, both models are attempting to bring in troughs into the northwest, flattening out the ridge that's over the southwest. But downstream, look at the size of this trough versus that one. The European much flatter with this flow pattern. And then take a look all the way out here into the end of week 2, or this would be September 1st. The GFS is very aggressive with a much broader trough along the west, which would shove the heat and the ridge a bit out of the way and start to maybe back things off and broaden out the warmth rather than concentrating it over the western part of the United States. You'll see that in a few moments. The European says, no, let's just keep things relatively in terms of higher pressure and higher heights over the western part of the United States. I'll show you those temperatures in a moment. But if we just look at week 2 precipitation anomalies, we're still not going to see much here. And this is simply because this is a normal drier time period for us in the western part of the United States. So let's talk about those temperatures. Today, another scorcher. We do see that temperatures in the Sacramento Valley may be up to, in some places here, 10 to 15 degrees above average. We see 108, 110, 108 down the middle part of the valley here, and then as you get down into the southwest here, boy, we're really talking about high temperatures. But as you saw, things are changing toward the end of the week for the northwest. Let's play this forward and take a look at that. Wednesday's high temperatures here, now Thursday and Friday. So there's the impact of that trough moving its way in toward the end of this week. Now we're starting to cool things down in the northwest. Still slightly warmer than average on the lee side of the mountains, but still cooler than what we had been seeing. As we go into Saturday and Sunday, While we're still seeing triple digits in the Central Valley of California, we're not nearly as hot as we were to start this week. Beyond that, let's take you out now to day 6 through 10. You see, this is the point where the GFS, notice it's going to keep that heat more concentrated to the south. The European broadens things out a little bit more. And as we go out there longer term, take a look. Okay, this is what I was saying. You see, the GFS with the flatter ridge farther to the south brings in much more normal conditions farther to the northwest, whereas the European says, let's back that ridge up a little bit more and keep more of that broader scale warmth into this area. So we'll have to see if the GFS has truly got the right idea on the more amplified pattern as we move into the time period of the end of August through the 2nd of September. Okay, from there, we got 2 last sets of maps to show you. The European weeklies were just released, and they both want to keep the western United States on the warmer side of things. But that's been the way the European model has been behaving. What's interesting is this. The CFS V2 model, while it's going to try to back off September 1st through 7th, keeping much more of the heat down in the southwest, from the 8th through the 14th, look at these anomalies here. It is predicting another very high amplitude pattern for the 2nd full week of the month of September here. And I'm going to have to watch this one extremely carefully because the model's trended that way just in the last couple of runs. So I'll watch it, report back to you tomorrow in the long range. And until then, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks.